Okay, cool. Well, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Welcome back to Between Meetings and Motherhood. I'm your host, Alexa Starks. I'm the editor in chief of Mothered Magazine. And today I have with me Anna McMaster, who is being featured in the June issue of Mothered Magazine. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on this podcast with you and to talk about all things pelvic floor.
Yes, and I had never heard of a pelvic floor until I don't know, was it my first pregnancy? I think it was in my first pregnancy that I started diving into, I wanted a natural birth. And so I started diving into how do I support that initiative, that idea. And I came across like, oh, what's your pelvic floor? And doing that, I was like, what's a pelvic floor? And went like down the rabbit hole of it. But even like my OBGYN never talked about a pelvic floor and what it was. Like I had to find this out on my own. And so why is this? Okay, wait. Time out, time out. Before we go into this, tell me a little bit more about how you got into this pelvic floor space and the amazing app that you've created.
Yeah, well, I also had not heard of a pelvic floor before doing my own research, so you're not alone in that. I think, a rabbit hole that we could go down that we will not is that just sex education, anatomy education, and well, especially in the United
Yes,
States, is sorely lacking. But
yes.
um, I learned about it in PT school when we had a guest lecturer come in. It was not part of like the normal PT school curriculum.
Oh,
That's sort of starting to change now, but 10 years ago, it definitely was not. We had a guest lecturer come in for like, I think 2 or 3 hours to talk about this thing called
hmm.
your pelvic floor muscles, which for, physical therapists are supposed to be experts in every muscle, joint, tendon in the body. And then to
That's a
have
lot.
just 2 or 3 hours on the pelvic floor is like kind of ridiculous.
Because
But
it holds up everything else, right?
it's like your
Everything
literal
else.
and physical center. It's like very important for like daily function, like going to the
Yeah.
bathroom. Like,
And it's
anyways,
men and women,
men
right?
and
Like
women.
men also have a pelvic floor.
Absolutely. So, yeah, once she started talking about all of these things, like how important the pelvic floor is,
Hmm.
how it's like working 24/7 for both men and women, I was like, I could not stop thinking about it. And I was like, why is no one talking about this? And the percentages are like staggering. Like
Hmm.
70 million people have urinary incontinence in the United States. Like,
Wow, that's a lot.
it's a lot. And people who have vaginal births are like at a very high risk of having urinary incontinence or leaking urine,
Hmm.
pelvic organ prolapse, their organs like falling down out of place, let's bowel issues, constipation or hemorrhoids or fissures. I mean, like the list can go on and on. And all of these things are related to the pelvic floor muscles. And so
Wow.
I just thought that, and this again was 10 years ago, there were hardly any pelvic floor PTs in the United
Hmm.
States. And I was like, well, we have to change this. Like more people, like people are silently suffering with this, and it's
Yeah.
affecting not like their daily lives. And they're not seeking help for it because it's embarrassing, and then they don't know that there is help. And so,
Right.
kind of, this cycle continues, which, if we fast forward then to why I started my company, Amy, a couple of years ago, was because like pelvic floor PT is getting more popular. It's getting a little more mainstream. There still are not enough of us to cover the
Hmm.
tens of millions of people who suffer with pelvic floor dysfunction. And I just thought, like, this should not be a privilege
Right.
for women who have the time or who happen to live by a pelvic floor PT or who can afford to pay out of pocket each week. I feel like every person, but my company specializes in women's pelvic health. Every
Hmm.
woman should have access to pelvic floor PT. And I thought the best way to do that was to create a digital platform so that we could remove some of those barriers that are facing women right
Yeah,
now.
that's amazing. So it's an app that has customizable like plans and videos and recommendations. Is that right?
Exactly. I set it up so that it works very similarly to how you would get evaluated and treated in a clinic if you went in person. And so you
Hmm.
are asked a couple of questions in the beginning. You take a couple of self assessments measuring not only your pelvic floor strength and function, but also just like kind of full body function because as we mentioned, it's at the center of your body and therefore is affected by everything
Hmm.
above it and everything below it. And you tell it, the platform, what symptoms you're having, and it takes all of that information and creates a daily plan for you. Same as like if you've been to PT before, getting like a home exercise
Hmm.
program. And so I wanted it not to be just like a cookie cutter, like fitness app. I wanted it to be something that changed with you and with your symptoms each day. And so that's
Yeah,
that's what Amy is.
that's so amazing. Okay, let's take a pause and go over for anyone who doesn't know what is pelvic floor therapy because when I saw a pelvic floor therapist with my second pregnancy because I had my kids really back to back and I wanted to make sure because both were vaginal that I had a strong pelvic floor going into my second birth and but it was very uh, it's not the same as when I saw a specialist for my knee, right? It was much more pelvic floor is more sort of, I would say, kind of closer to like a gynecological exam. So take us through what does actual pelvic floor therapy look like? And then what does it look like to do it yourself at home?
Yes, great questions. And I think if I am allowed to bring in a visual aid, if I
Absolutely.
may,
Please do.
I'm like,
Visual aid, graphic, get as graphic as you need to be because this is our bodies. This is natural. There's nothing crazy weird going on here.
great. Um, I like to start with first, like, what is the pelvic floor? Like, what are pelvic floor muscles? Where are they on our body? And I have my trusty pelvis here. And so,
Yes.
just to orient, right, these are your hip bones. This is your spine here, tailbone in the back. And so, if we look on the bottom, this is like if someone was sitting in a chair and you were looking directly up, right? And this is female anatomy. So, we have vaginal opening, anal
Mm-hmm.
opening, and then up here, urethra, and up here, clitoris.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this red stuff, that's all pelvic floor muscles.
Wow,
And
that's a lot more than I thought.
there are a lot. And so there are actually like three layers of muscles. We have the superficial layer that you're seeing here, an intermediate layer, and then these big guys that create the actual like kind of bowl shape. And
Wow.
so just to give you context of what we are assessing is all of those muscles, and what sits in that bowl are pelvic organs. And so in females, right, we have bladder, uterus, vagina, and then rectum and anus. And if you think about that and then everything that lives above it, all of our
Mm-hmm.
intestines and abdominal organs and diaphragm, so all of those little muscles, there are no bones underneath it, right? Those are the things that
Right.
are holding everything up. And so they're little tiny muscles that have a really big job. And if we think about, I'm going to talk about kind of traditional in-person PT first.
Mm-hmm.
And what is involved in that, what it can involve is an internal exam. And
Mm-hmm.
I know people get really worried about that. It is similar to a gynecological exam, except we do not use, like a speculum or any tools
Thank
like
God.
that. Yes, so you don't have to scoot your butt all the way to the bottom of the table. We try to make it as comfortable as possible. And what it entails, if you consent, of course, you obviously do not have to
Mm-hmm.
do that if you don't want to, is just like it's a digital exam. So we put gloves, lube, and we are assessing with our finger kind of like each layer, each spot um, in those muscles for tension, pain, strength, right? We will have you do Kegels just to see like, are the muscles contracting and relaxing
Hmm.
as they are supposed to? Um, but that's not all, that's one piece of it, right? And I will keep harping on this because this is like the direction that we are going with Amy, is that as we talk about pelvic floor PT and pelvic floor therapists, but we don't just treat, the pelvis or the pelvic floor. We
Hmm.
treat the whole body because it is all connected. And so you mentioned, going to a pelvic floor PT was different than when you saw like your knee PT. That is true because, yes, it's a little more intimate. But a good pelvic floor PT will also assess, your low back range of motion, your
Hmm.
hips, like your feet up to your neck, because all of these things are connected. And so, depending on what's going on with you, you may receive some sort of very specific pelvic floor exercise, whether that is Kegels, or on the flip side, maybe something to learn how to relax the pelvic floor.
Yeah.
But you may also receive exercises like squats and
Hmm.
clamshells, like things that you might not think would be associated specifically with pelvic floor PT. And then the next question that I always get is like, okay, well, how do you do that digitally, like on a platform? And I think, we as pelvic floor PTs got really good in COVID on learning how to be able to assess someone from afar, like via telehealth. And
Uh-huh.
so we have lots of tools on either like cueing someone to go through certain movements.
Mm.
I'll tell you, for example, what we have in Amy is I have kind of like a step by step self pelvic floor assessment where I'll ask someone, okay, do a couple Kegels and think about, did you feel this? Did you feel this or did you not feel this? And you answer in what you felt or didn't feel, and then we can sort of be able to determine what is happening in your pelvic floor based on your answers.
Mm.
And I mentioned that even if you go in person for PT, like some people don't want an internal exam, and that is totally fine. And
Yeah.
so we also have to be able to figure out what's going on with them, even if they come in person but don't want an internal exam. And
Mm.
so the exercises are the same, the education is the same. It's just the assessment looks a little bit different.
Yeah. I love this so much. And, as someone who I did the internal exam, so I can say with full confidence it is nothing compared to giving birth.
Oh,
If you
no.
have given birth, this is nothing. If
Yes.
you will give birth, this is nothing.
Yes.
So it's don't be afraid of one little finger to test your strength. It's over in like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
It's
Like 30
nothing. Like
seconds
if
to a minute. Like,
you got to be able to handle this because you're going to have to handle birth.
right. Yes. Yes. And I think
um,
most people have that response. Once it's over, they're like, oh, that's it?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, yeah. It's way easier than like your annual pap smear. Way
Oh, yeah,
easier.
for sure.
One of the other things that I did a lot in my PT work was core work, and
Mm-hmm.
specifically like the transverse abs, where I would either be on all fours or on a ball or kind of kneeling on my legs, knees, and doing that like deep breath in, and then as I breathe out, kind of, I think it was then exhale, kind of zip up from my pelvic floor, like up my abs is like the best
Mm-hmm.
way I can describe it. But that was like one of the big ones that I did. And I still do that all the time at the gym now, 2 years postpartum. I'll do that because I just want to always make sure that I'm like working my pelvic floor, strengthening it. Is that
Yeah.
right? Is that something you talk about or you have in your app?
Oh, totally. Yes. I always say that the pelvic floor muscles and the core muscles are like the deep ab muscles. They're best friends, and
Hmm.
they should relax at the same time, and they should also contract at the same time. So that like
Mm.
kind of zipping up feeling that you're describing is like contracting the pelvic floor and at the same time also contracting those lower abs to kind of like train them together. And I
Hmm.
think it's, you know, yes, it's very common to get those exercises like in pregnancy or immediately postpartum, but I always say that once you're postpartum, you're always postpartum. And so I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of continuing to do that work. Like, I don't want to say you have to do it forever, but like it should be part of like what you're doing at the gym every so often. You should
Yeah.
be paying attention to what's going on in your core and in your pelvic floor because as your body changes throughout the years, as you get older, as we head into, you know, perimenopause and menopause, like
Hmm.
those muscles are still very, very important in keeping your body functioning like we want it to.
Yeah. That's amazing. Okay, I want to go back to you for a bit before we move on to some tactical advice pieces. Okay, so how did knowing all of this about pelvic floor help your pregnancy?
I'm like, help. It helped and it hurt a little bit. I was a victim of like the knowing a bit too much sort of
Okay.
situation. I think my doctor got so sick of me by the end because I was like,
You're
always
like,
had
I
a
know more than
list.
you.
Yeah. I was like, but what about this? Like, what if this happens to me? And she's like, that is so rare. Like, stop it. Um, so, yes, I was that annoying patient, like
So funny.
100%. Um, and it also was, I think, uh, before I got pregnant and like treating mainly pregnant and postpartum women, I was very like, come on, you like gotta do your core, you gotta do all your exercise, you gotta do all this stuff. Like, I know you say you're tired, but you gotta do it. And then when I was pregnant, I was like, I am tired, does not even begin to describe
Yeah.
what I am feeling. And so I wasn't like the best, you know, at
Hmm.
keeping up with everything that I knew I should be doing. Um, and that was hard mentally to be like, oh man, like I should
Yeah.
be having like the best pregnancy right now. I shouldn't be having any pains. I shouldn't be having leaking. Um,
Mom
and
guilt.
sometimes it just happens, you know, like I
Yeah.
was working full time. I was tired. I had the nausea. And so you do the best you can.
Yeah.
And I kind of, you know, had to just accept that and know that whatever happened happened, and it it gave me definitely a new appreciation of all my patients, and it definitely changed how I practiced after that. For
Oh.
example, instead of just blindly giving like, yes, could I give people like 20 exercises that they should be doing every day? Sure. But if someone is telling me that I already have two kids at home, I work full time, like, I don't have time to do this,
Hmm.
okay, then what's like one or two things that you could do?
Yeah.
And like, that's
I
good
love that.
enough, you know? So sorry, that was a long answer to your question.
No, I love it.
But that's sort of how I went about recovering postpartum as well, was just
Yeah.
being, I mean, I had a rough postpartum recovery. I had a third degree tear, which
Oh,
was
wow.
not something that I was expecting. Again, I was like, I'm a pelvic floor PT. I did my perineal massage, you know, like I should have
Yeah.
not had anything go on down there. And it like you can't fight the way that my baby came out, like the biggest circumference of her head came out
Oh,
first. And so
no.
like it is what it is.
Yeah.
And so I kind of took that. I gave myself the grace of like time and healing, which again, I in my head I was like, oh, day one, I'm gonna be like doing back to all my recovery stuff.
Yeah.
And that just wasn't what my body was ready for at that time.
Yeah.
And so that I think was helpful too, to be able to, with my knowledge of how the body works, to be able to kind of block out a lot of the noise that's like on social media, where it's like, no, you
Hmm.
need to like, I mean, my least favorite term, right? The bounce back.
Bounce back. Yeah. Hate it.
You need to be able to like get back on the gym and like do all this stuff. And it's like, well, for some people, their bodies are ready for that. And for some people, they're
Yeah.
definitely not. And to be able to know that for myself, that there's nuance.
Hmm.
And that is something that I want to hopefully be able to show other people too out there, that it's not whatever this one influencer is saying, like that was her experience
Yes.
and that's cool for her, or like that's what happened with your mom or your friend. But you have to be able to listen to what's happening in your body at that time and then make
Hmm.
those decisions.
Yeah. I love that. I talk about that a lot too, about not bouncing back and evolving forward and giving yourself that time and grace. I want to ask you, because you're an entrepreneur, but you're building in this, so you have your private practice, but you're building something that's like femtech, but like we don't even as a society talk about vaginal health enough, let alone enough awareness and support and resources for femtech companies that are building um, apps and resources about that. How have you navigated that? Has there been any like challenges that you've run up against with trying to build a company around like pelvic floor health and vaginal health for women?
I mean, I will say, I think I am building this at a really good time because
Mm.
there are many more people talking about this, many more people building in femtech in general, many more investors who invest specifically in women's health. There's not as many as like investors investing in like AI, let's say,
Right.
but I've had the vast majority very positive conversations with people.
That's amazing.
I will say, the times where I come up against some challenges are particularly talking to men where they just like don't quite understand. And
Mm.
maybe it's a man who doesn't have children, or like maybe doesn't have a wife who's like gone through something, and you're kind of starting from like the very very basics of like, this is why you should care about this, versus if I'm talking to a woman who has had children, who like is an investor in women's health, like we can we can skip past all of that. They already get it and
Right.
understand it. And so I think the biggest thing is that we still have lots of work to do just educating like the general public.
Yeah.
Because like you said, we don't learn about vaginal health. I think the like sex talk we had in middle school was just like, don't have sex. That was like the whole
Yeah.
talk. And like
Yeah.
maybe like, oh, you have a period. But there wasn't anything around, you know, good bladder habits, good bowel habits,
Hmm.
like all of these things that are habits that start when we're so young. And then like you feel the effects of it maybe decades later.
Hmm.
I've had patients where I've had to undo a lot of stuff that they've just lived with.
Hmm.
And so that's a big part of what I see my job is too, is just like general education.
Yeah. And that is important. I mean, my middle school sex ed education, I honestly can't even remember it. Like, truthfully, zero memory of it. I just remember getting my period and thinking I was dying because I saw blood and I was like, this is it. I've got like internal bleeding. Anyways, that's a story for another time. Um, So, so your daughter is also young. She's two,
4.
four. Okay, four. So, what's that like growing a business around women's health and motherhood and also raising a daughter?
Oh man, it's hard. I'll say, well, the hard parts are obvious. It's just like logistics and
Hmm.
time, right? Um, my daughter is going through this phase where it is she will not eat dinner in less than like 75 minutes. Like it is like a I'm like chasing her around. I'm like eat this like she's like skinny. She like needs to
My
eat.
daughter's the same way.
And if
She'll
I like
nibble and then run off.
yeah, and I'm like, can you sit down for more than like 45 seconds at a time? No? Okay. Well, um and I was trying to fight it before I'd like put these timers on and all these things. 'Cause I'm like, I should be working. I should be doing. And
Hmm.
I think it's just like accepting that like this is I want to be able to put my mom hat on,
Yeah.
during this time and like do this for her for something that I'm really hoping is a phase.
Yeah. Knock on
And
wood.
right. And I think being an entrepreneur though allows me that flexibility.
Yeah.
Whereas, working maybe for a company before it would be much more challenging where like I can and like I feel okay about either waking up earlier to
Hmm.
work instead or like after she goes to bed doing a little bit more work.
Yeah.
So it's like finding that balance. But also, speaking of that education piece, I've really been enjoying. I like bought her this book on like anatomy, and like she's been really interested in because I had a friend who was pregnant, and she was like, her mind was like blown. Like, there's a baby in there. Like, how does the baby get in there? How does the baby get come out? And I was like, I will tell you, and so she actually like loves having me read to her this book that
Wow.
just spells out in like very plain anatomical terms, like
Hmm.
girls and women have like vaginas and a
Hmm.
uterus, and like boys and men have a penis and testicles, and she
Yeah.
just like loves it. She's like so
That's so
interested.
cool.
And I think like I've really been enjoying that part of it of getting
Does she
to
know the work you do?
like sort of it's kind of hard to explain that to like a 4-year-old. She like knows that I help people and that
Okay.
I think the closest I think she sort of thinks I'm a doctor, but I'm like, no, I'm not like the doctor. I'm not like your pediatrician, but like, we'll get
Yeah.
there. Um, quite hard to explain to her. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
but yeah,
I
I've
love
really enjoyed that part.
I love that so much because I also with my kids, I mean they're two, three and two, and we're just at like the words, the language. You have a vagina, you have a penis. But using those words. And I think
Hmm.
that's also really important is not, not downplaying or doing some funny word. I'm like, this is a penis, you have a vagina. He has a penis, you have a vagina.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. That's an important part of that education early on is not being afraid to talk about it because then you end up like me where you're pregnant and you're like, I've never heard of pelvic floor before. What is it? And
Yeah.
it's kind of this making up for the education system um, and the lack of awareness. Because in society, it's still kind of taboo even to talk about a vagina,
Yeah.
let alone like pelvic floor health that comes with it.
Totally. Yeah, and it's like it's not just that education piece, but then what goes with it is hopefully breaking down some of that shame around it because it's like there shouldn't be any
Yes.
shame.
Hmm.
Like women get periods. Like why are we like hiding like tampons in our sleeves when we're like going to the
Ooh,
bathroom?
I just did a post about this, about how like
Did you?
one of my like micro feminism things that I love doing is like when I have to, I did this just at the gym the other day, is I carried a tampon in my hand, like so you could see it while I walked to the bathroom. I didn't like put it in my purse and hide it and like walk over and,
Ah,
scurry over. Like I was like, nope, I'm on my period. This is so important because your period and your vagina are the things that keep the human race going. We should
right.
not feel shame about it. We're
No.
the ones continuing the species. We should not feel
Exactly.
shame. It's wild.
Exactly. And I think that all of that goes, I think it's kind of this domino effect where if we can start talking about vaginas and periods, then maybe it might feel a little bit easier to say, like, hey, like I did leak a little pee when I sneezed the other day. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of sucked. And like, can I do something about that? And
Yeah.
like, talking about that even just in your little like friend circles. Like I know some people don't even want to tell their doctors about it. And
Yeah.
so I think that that's really important of just doing. I love that, like little micro things that you yourself can be doing that like
Yeah.
maybe a woman saw you and was like, oh, like maybe I'll do that next time,
Yes. Yeah. I love this. Okay. Why? I need to understand why and how are hemorrhoids part of your pelvic floor health? And why do they keep occurring? Because I swear to God, I never had any issues before I had kids. And then I had kids. And I think was it after my first? Yeah, maybe it was after my first. I remember for the first time sitting on a toilet like a couple months after having kids, and it was like shitting glass. I was
Ugh.
like, why does it feel like this? What is going on? What is happening to my butthole right now? And I was just like Googling on my phone while like calling my husband, like, babe, my butthole. So and then I was like, oh, you can get hemorrhoids after having kids, and it's like an ongoing thing. So please tell me, and anyone who's listening to this and wants to hear about hemorrhoids or my hemorrhoids specifically, why is this a thing? How do we fix it? And what do we do about it?
Yes. Well, I will. There's good news and bad news about hemorrhoids. And maybe I'll start with the bad news first.
Okay, okay, give it to me straight.
And this comes directly from my colorectal doctor, who I just had to see the other week about also my hemorrhoids. So, like, you are not alone. Um,
Yes.
and that's kind of the bad news, is that none of us are alone. She was like,
Mm.
almost 100% of people are going to get hemorrhoids. Like, it just is going to happen. Like,
That's a
and
lot.
and
Wow.
they can be of varying degrees of bothersome. Like some people could
Right.
have a hemorrhoid and it doesn't bother them at all, and they don't even know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's fine.
Hmm.
The other bad news is just the way that or what a hemorrhoid is essentially is a blood vessel that gets kind of expanded, and I will get into that
Hmm.
why. And it gets expanded and it pushes out on the skin of our anal opening, which, if you can
Hmm.
imagine what an anal sphincter looks like, it's wrinkly, right? It has skin folds
Yeah.
because it has to expand to let stool out. And so those excess skin folds can become stretched even further.
Mm.
And so the actual hemorrhoid, the blood vessel, can like go away, get not as like expanded, but the skin will kind of always be stretched.
Mm.
And so that's the bad news. Uh, the good news is that you can like decrease the chances of flaring up your hemorrhoid with good bowel habits. Um,
Okay.
because what it a lot of what the pelvic floor has to do with is maintaining pressure and like distributing pressure. And the way you get hemorrhoids is if you have prolonged pressure down on the anal area. And so when does that
Hmm.
happen? Usually with constipation and then pregnancy and vaginal delivery, right? Vaginal delivery
Hmm.
is like the most intense version of that because if you're pushing, right,
Yeah.
for hours on end, you're going to have hemorrhoids after that because you are putting
Hmm.
downward pressure for hours. Um, and so we will often see hemorrhoids flare up or begin in pregnancy because, again, you're carrying the weight of this ever growing baby on that pelvic floor, causing pressure. So, good bowel habits to have would be to avoid constipation so that you're not just sitting on a toilet for, 5, 10, 15 minutes. Because every time you sit on the toilet, that's just pressure getting directed down at your butthole. And
Okay.
so, you want to avoid constipation by drinking lots of water and taking like a fiber supplement if you need to.
Okay.
Also, not straining. So, the whole like kind of like closed mouth pushing. I mean, we giggle, but I teach lots of people how to have like proper bowel movements. And
Whenever I'm constipated, I practice my deep breathing that I did during my
yeah,
contractions of like breathe in and then like send it downwards. And it
yep,
works.
yep. You
Yeah.
gotta like make sure that you're breathing out through your mouth and like out of your
Yes.
butthole.
Yep.
And also, like, you could use a squatty potty as well because
Mm.
that just it helps get the rectum and anal opening in a more like kind of straight down position as opposed to where it usually lives is literally like a 90-degree angle. So if you think about like how poop has to travel, like going out of a 90-degree angle is much
Yeah.
harder than if it could just go straight down.
And now a regular stool can work well, right?
Yes. Anything that
Okay.
brings your knees a little bit higher than your hips.
Oh, okay. Okay. This is amazing. And then other than that, the other only godsend relief has been those preparation H, like wipes and
Mm-hmm.
cream. That's like if I had known that this was going to be such a thing, I would have like bought stock in preparation H or whoever owns them. Because I like
Yes.
bought a Costco size amount and it's just like we're just going through it. And um that's also if you're listening to this, preparation H.
Oh, yes. Those
Phenomenal.
little witch hazel pads
Yes. Mm-hmm. Those
help
are
with
great.
the itching and the just like pain in general
Yes.
with the
Yes.
inflammation.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for my butthole. Let's go back to Amy and tell me what your like long-term vision is for this.
Yeah. So I'll start with like where we're starting right now, which is pregnancy and postpartum because I felt like that need was kind of the most acute. Um, but realistically, where I want Amy to go is to be able to cover women throughout all of adulthood, like
Mm,
pre pregnancy, through pregnancy, postpartum, uh, perimenopause, menopause, but especially in those kind of in between times.
hmm,
Because, like I mentioned, I had my daughter 4 years ago. And so I technically, if I went to pelvic floor PT right now, nothing is like clinically wrong, right? Like
right.
I can't be given like a diagnosis, but when I wake up, do I feel creaky in the mornings and like does my neck kind of like hurt and my back kind of feel achy? And so there's just like this lack of support for the aging female body that I feel like I've been
Mm,
seeing and that people are wanting, but it's just not available. Like it's not quite a fitness app. I mean, like those are great, but that's for something different. And like I said, it's not quite like going to the doctor level or going to see a PT level.
hmm.
And so I want Amy to feel like that kind of constant, I mean, I named it Amy, like the French word for female friend. I wanted it to be like that friend, that companion that you could have, throughout your whole adult life that's there for any little ache, pain, pelvic dysfunction, things that
Hmm.
come up um, that maybe are small. And then, like, we're here for the bigger things too. Like, if you do have a full on diagnosis of stress urinary incontinence or pelvic organ
Hmm.
prolapse, like, we will have the PTs to treat you via telehealth. But we also just have our library of exercises and educational articles there for you on demand when you need them, when you wake up and you've like kinked your neck, you know? And so that's my broader vision, is that it's something that is there for you for whatever stage of life or in between stage of life that you're in, and that can help you like when you need
Hmm.
help without having to wait or to call your insurance or to, do all of those extra things that like add to the mental load of like helping yourself. It should be as easy
Yeah.
as like just opening up the Amy app and knowing that it has everything in there that I would need to help myself in this moment.
I love that so much, especially because there's so many women, especially in America, that don't have easy access to an OB or gynecologist, and so especially not a pelvic floor therapist, and so they're disadvantaged, right? And so being able to, and also financially, like it cost me, it was out of, my insurance did not cover my
Yeah.
pelvic floor therapy, so I had to pay out of pocket for it. So again, a privileged thing. So I love that it's something easily accessible for many women, and I love this idea that it's like your female friend, that it like you should be investing in your vaginal health as a woman for the entirety of your womanhood. Really,
Yes.
like, and we're not taught that mindset. But I mean, it is, like I've had to just research so much to find out like basic knowledge,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
So, so thank you for what you're building, and
Yeah.
honestly, the impact that it's going to have on so many women.
I'm really, I guess this is like the second part of the goal, is that by starting early enough, by teaching people about like the importance of pelvic floor health and just like, I don't know, like whole body musculoskeletal health, it's so much better to start addressing it earlier, right? Almost like
Hmm.
preventatively, than what we're seeing now is all of these women who are in perimenopause or menopause having to get surgeries or like
Yeah,
hip fractures, back spinal fractures because of the things that like they didn't do earlier in their life, and it's not their fault. No one told them to like,
right.
you know, strengthen their muscles or to do pelvic floor therapy. I'm sure it wasn't even a thing, like 40,
Probably,
50
yeah.
years ago. And so hopefully giving, our generation and future generations better long-term outcomes, by just starting to plant that seed earlier. So you're not finding
Yeah.
out, like you did, where you're like, wait, why does my butthole hurt? Oh, oh, it's a hemorrhoid. Oh, and it's like being able to
Yeah.
know that ahead of time so that when it does happen,
You're prepared.
that you're prepared and you're not like freaking
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Wild. Um, well, thank you, Anna. Where can we find you online, on social media, and your app is in the App Store?
It is a web app currently,
Web app.
but on Instagram and TikTok, you can find us at askamy.co. And our website is the same, askamy.co. And we would love to have you follow us there. We share lots of good educational and not too heavy handed, like light, sometimes funny educational content.
I love it. I love it. And if you are listening to this, that means the June issue of Mothered Magazine has been released. So you can read more of Anna's exclusive interview at motheredmagazine.com. Thank you so much, Anna, for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure talking about all things pelvic floor health, pregnancy, postpartum, and buttholes, honestly.
I mean, it's my favorite thing to talk about
Yes,
anytime.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.